Right, hello and welcome to Bloke on the Range. We're taking a moment from our busy skiing schedule up here at Lenk. And sorry, you may have noticed that I am balding quite significantly now, so woolly hat has to go on.
Survive.
We haven't done a Patreon Q&A for a while, so a few days ago asked the patrons for their questions. And the list is up to date as of this morning. Sorry if you happen to have sent something in the meantime. Sorry, we didn't get it. So, there's actually a bunch of interesting questions this time. So, let us crack right on with it, and hopefully my phone won't cark it in the cold. Right. Bloke and Chap. When the Swiss were developing GP90, did they do any modifications to the test Vetterli rifles to have them stand up to the new smokeless round?
No.
No. No. It doesn't fit for a start. The Vetterli action is short and optimised for a stumpy little cartridge, and hence, it just wasn't a thing. Yeah. The Vetterli action was used by Rubin for tests.
Yep.
Higher pressure rounds. There's an 1883 jacketed 7.5mm case, which is basically a necked 10.4 Vetterli round.
I have seen one GP90 chambered Vetterli.
Have you?
Yes. In Lucerne, and the only difference was it was a massive heavy barrel, but the action was the same, so you'd have to spoon it in.
Yeah, so
it fit, so it was a single shot, but apart from the barrel, it was absolutely standard.
Okay, I've never seen this one, so you want.
It was, how much? There. Oh, maybe not.
Lots. So that was quite a simple one. Sorry, that was a very boring answer. The Italian, slight tangent, the Italian Vetterlis were chambered for a much longer cartridge.
Yep.
So they were uprated later to 6.5.
Yeah.
Gargano.
There's an extra, at least 10 millimeters.
Yeah, they're
on a 10.4 by 47 Italian.
They're much longer cartridges, so there's the room. The Swiss one's very, very stumpy.
Yeah.
So, next up, if my phone will orient this the right way, what is the most interesting side skill you've picked up as shooter/competitor, meaning something not directly related to shooting? Asked by Matthew. Sorry, I forgot to say. I think the first question was asked by Will. Mm-hmm. This one's asked by Matthew.
This is more applicable to you. I've picked up lots of practical skills in making random cartridges and using tools for things they're not supposed to. But I think in terms of actually shooting, it's more your thing for now.
I'm not sure there's actually anything in particular that is more generally applicable, really, because my mental maths is atrocious still. So not even scoring targets has contributed to helping that.
Well, I can say that for me. My mental arithmetic is worse than yours, and it has improved due to having to rapidly score.
Must have been very bad then.
It is.
It's actually a complete tangent. It's something they're really good at with the schooling system here with kids. Our kids have much better mental maths within the realms of what their ability level is. They're much better at it because they're explicitly taught it here, whereas we were just expected to work it out. The one random thing, but again, I'm not sure if it's really applicable outside of shooting, is because when I was shooting target rifle a lot, you have a spotting scope on your left, and what I would do is I would look through the scope with my left eye and look at the wind flags with my right, and I could shift my attention between the two images without having to close an eye or consciously focus, so I could simultaneously watch the wind flags and then the mirage on the scope.
So you could be an Apache pilot?
Yeah. So no. Honestly, we were racking our brains on this one like yesterday, and can't really think of anything in particular, I'm afraid. So, next up, I'll remember the names this time. Samuel asks, where did the chap learn to speak French, and both of you Swiss German? How difficult was it? So, Chappie, where did you learn your original mother tongue?
In my mother country. Watch our drunken Christmas FAQ for more information.
Yes. He's French.
That's why.
Yeah, he's French.
I grew up in the UK, but French was still spoken at home. So it was maintained all through my junior and teen and upwards life.
It's why he speaks both English and French entirely without an accent. And with kind of the same accent at the same time. Whereas when I speak French, I have an atrocious English accent. So I'm not going to put myself on the spot and try and do it now. But yeah, there's dual mother tongue and someone who learnt it later in life.
Yep.
Even though I speak it basically fluently. Although I write it better than I speak it, strangely.
Yeah. And yeah, as for Swiss German, immersion.
Immersion here.
The only way.
Now, your Swiss German has a lot more High German in it, because you have a lot of Germans and Austrians that work at your place.
My working environment is predominantly High German. Apart from when I'm speaking to the Swiss German colleagues who refuse to speak High German. And but there's no other way around it, really.
Yeah, the learning materials are inadequate in general. Most of them are written in High German for the benefit of Germans, and mostly so that they can at least understand it passively.
Yeah.
A lot of Germans and Austrians, when they move here, they will learn to understand the dialect, but they won't necessarily learn to speak it. There are, of course, exceptions. And it's unusual to hear Swiss German spoken with a German accent, or an Austrian accent. And actually, the Eastern Austrian dialects are mutually intelligible anyway. So guys from the east of Austria just speak their own dialect, usually. How difficult was it? We both cheated because we both had fluent Dutch from 8 and 10 years, respectively, in Holland. It's a very similar language, particularly Bernese.
Certainly, the pronunciation is Dutch is a great help for pronouncing the different vowel combinations. They may not be the same, but you have the sounds already.
Yeah, and the ch is on a different letter just to make it difficult, because in Dutch it's on the G and in Swiss German it's on the K.
Yeah.
So overall, not that difficult, but after an equivalent number of years, we both spoke Dutch a lot better. But then it was much easier because there were learning materials if you wanted them, and the thing in Holland, aside from being a member of a shooting club and spending a lot of time there and talking to people, was you read the subtitles on the TV, because they don't dub.
They don't bother. Yeah.
They don't bother. They just subtitle everything. So if you pay attention and read the subtitles, you pick up an awful lot of language like that. We don't have that option here.
Although here it is, the helpful bit here is that they don't automatically switch to English if they recognise a foreign accent.
They automatically switch to High German.
Which is High German, but it's still German.
Yeah.
Whereas in Holland, it's you're foreign. I'll change to English, which is probably worse than I think it is.
Yeah, I speak English.
German. I speak German, so yes, here you have more of an incentive to get on with it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't bother though. A lot of people just learn High German, speak High German instead. So we're kind of unusual in that we insist on speaking dialect. So, next, there we go. Next, Duncan asks, looking ahead to the next, I hope, bolt action challenge, will a straight pull L1A1 with the semi-auto function permanently blocked be acceptable in the competition? I currently have one on order, and apparently it comes with a 10-round magazine. Why have I ordered one, you may ask? Well, I decided I wanted one, but I couldn't be bothered to jump through all the hoops to get a Category B licence until Brexit is sorted and my residence permit is produced. This is Cat C and easy to buy in France. Well, the answer is simple. I'm sorry. If we do a bolt action challenge, it will be bolt action service rifles as issued, and that is neither a bolt action service rifle nor as issued. We have to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it would be quite humorous, because having to break position to cock it every time or wave it around, you're going to have to break position to cock it each time, unless it's got a right hand cocking adaptation on it.
I suppose you could.
It's not a competitive advantage in any way.
No.
But we have to draw the line somewhere. If we make it more generally service rifle, we might...
Classic semi-auto service. But then
maybe
it's still not it's still a disadvantage.
Talk to us nearer the time when we've decided if it's going to be bolt action only or not.
Yeah.
And if it even happens, because it requires lots of stars to align again. But if it's a bolt action challenge, then sorry, I'm afraid it's not. I mean, we also drew the line at fine correctors. So we were explicitly not allowing the Swedish Mausers with the fine corrector, or a P14 or P14 Mark 1F with the fine corrector because they were marksmen.
K31 ones.
Well,
fine
they weren't
correctors.
even issued. I mean, at least
Yeah.
the Swedish ones and the P14s were actually issued items, but they were sharpshooting rifles.
Yeah.
And we drew the line. It had to be a bog standard infantry rifle. Once you open the floodgates and you get too many can I questions,
Yeah.
it goes a bit Pete-tong sometimes. It gets a bit overwhelming. Next up, Gavin of the excellent Welsh whiskey. Thank you again. Why are revolver hammers so much larger than semi-auto pistol hammers, especially given that they can fire the same ammunition types? It's simple geometry. There's nothing to do with inertia or anything there. It's just the force getting from where it has to get to where it has to get to do what it does with the constraints of having a magazine in the way or not.
Yeah.
So revolver hammers end up pivoted lower down to get all the angles right in the gubbins.
Work the hand and everything else.
Yeah, whereas a semi-auto pistol will normally have transfer bar going down one or both sides of the magazine well high up. Depending on the design, it may be pushing forwards or pulling backwards. Pulling forwards or pushing backwards. Depending on the geometry, and it's basically it's that predicates where the hammer's pivoted, and where it's pivoted predicates how big it has to be. There's nothing ammunition related. There's nothing deeper there than that.
Yeah, I mean, you see that the first semi-auto designs still have the
Mauser,
basic revolver type geometry.
Well, Mauser C96 because the magazine's in
Or
front.
the Mannlicher 1905, massive
Yeah.
hammer at the back.
Yeah, pivoted lower because of the way they're getting the force
Exactly.
from the trigger back to the hammer. I mean, the C96 hammers are massive great things. But certainly in modern terms, it's Anyway, I think we've
Killed that one.
exhausted that one. Next up, John, how on earth are you meant to actually hold the weapon when using long-range or volley sights, especially black powder rifles? Seems like you'd have to shove the butt into your armpit.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I'll let you start this one.
Well, we're going on the premise that it's on loads of rifles but never really actually used. It's more of a vanity item.
I mean, when you read about the extremely long-range engagements in the Long Lee era, so in the African campaigns, Omdurman and places like that. If I remember rightly, there was one particularly long engagement where they opened fire at 1,600 yards, and none of the enemy got to within 400 yards. So that's excellent shooting, chaps.
Yes.
But that's well within the adjustment of the standard sights.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up a lot still, and your head is going to be up a lot, but it's still...
You can still shoulder it.
Yeah.
But volley sights, I think you're basically right. I mean, if you've got your thing here and your front sight on the side there, there's nothing really you can do.
And they're offset,
Yeah.
left or right, depending.
Exactly.
The Mannlicher ones are offset to the right, the Lee-Enfield ones are
Lee-Enfields
offset
on the
to the
left.
left, and
Yeah.
you've got the fold-up aperture that's off to the left and is odd. They're highly unergonomic, and I think that they're a nice idea on paper.
That's it.
And in practice, I mean, because the sight graduations on the normal sights go out way beyond what is practical anyway, even in a sort of African campaign, mass cavalry charges over open ground sort of situation.
Yeah, I think it's also at the time there was less and less of this open countryside warfare where you could physically shower platoon fire.
Or company
company-
or battalion level.
Yeah, battalion level raining fire over such a distance.
I mean, once we get to the musketry regulations 1909, there's an example of long-range fire, group fire, and the example they're giving is like 1,500 yards or something like that,
Which is
still
normal graduation.
well within. I mean, the graduations on the SMLE go out to 2,000 on the normal site, so it's like you wouldn't, but probably if you did, you'd have to tuck it into your armpit or on your bingo wing or whatever. Next up, Tim asks, what are some firearm myths you're particularly looking forward to debunking?
I don't know.
Well, on my side, I want to do some recoil stuff. These are have heavy bookwork episodes, which I've not had the time and energy for lately. I've got permission to use other people's footage that I have for about a year, and I haven't got around to doing this. But there's all sorts of woo about recoil, like energy is conserved. So if you've got a 3,000 joule muzzle energy, you've got 3,000 joule recoil energy, whereas actually not. You've got about less than 20. Sorry, the figures in my head are like 10 to 13 foot-pounds, and I can't immediately convert in my head because my mental maths sucks, as I noted earlier. So you're looking at sort of 20 joules or less that way, and it's simply because it's a conservation of momentum issue, and I want to go through all of that, and unfortunately there will be maths, there will be some algebra. I'll try and keep it as simple as possible, and I'm going to also make a point of dropping a kettlebell such that it has 300 joules of kinetic energy when it impacts, so like a tenth of what a full power rifle bullet typically might have, just to make the point that no, it is momentum that's conserved, not energy. There's that. I mean,
do you want to prove that recoil happens?
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
Not
this will
at
be
the
part
moment.
of it. This will be part of it. Is that as soon as the bullet starts to move, the gun starts to move backwards as well. Which actually, if you watch any slow motion video that is slow enough, you can see it happen.
Apparently, this is hard for some people.
This is very hard. Well, it's hard for the US Navy.
Is it?
As well, yeah, they believed it. Hatcher's Notebook has an excellent treatment of recoil, as does the textbook of Small Arms 1904. In fact, I'll put a link to PDFs of both of them in the description below because they're on my Google Drive. So, yeah, I mean, they were measuring this stuff in the textbook of Small Arms 1904. They were actually measuring with primitive pre-digital techniques. They were measuring recoil prior to bullet exit. So there's that. Other ones, I'm trying to convince Neil to let me destroy more.
Yeah, we need to do the number 4 action strength one to its limit.
Yeah.
With a healthy bolt, we hope.
Yeah, a healthy bolt and lots of bullseye, or other fast powder, something like that. Because I mean, we've done a lot of the big ones we want to do.
It's still not died.
No, of course not. Of course not. There's some other ones. I'm soon getting an M16A1, which I'll probably not clean. All I will do to it is make sure that it's well lubed, but otherwise just like never clean the working parts, just to see how long it goes on. Enfield myths, we've pretty much debunked most of them.
Yeah.
What else? Got any French ones?
No, not really.
Yeah. So, sorry, that's a really crap answer. Desperately sorry.
Big myths have been done. I'm sure,
If you've got any ideas for us,
exactly. Throw 'em.
please let us know. I mean, things like debunking M1 carbine penetration and stopping power and things like that. That's been done to death elsewhere, and we don't really have the facilities for shooting at random things.
Objects, yes.
And that will literally just be duplication of stuff other people have done to death. Oh, a little tangent on that. The people who believe the M1 carbine myths must believe that for some reason 45 ACP is capable of penetrating like wet, frozen North Korean
Down jacket.
armor, but not soft Kevlar body armor, whereas M1 carbine is capable of penetrating soft Kevlar, but not. Yeah, bad physics. Yeah, gun magazine physics. It's a very silly one as soon as you think about it.
But Gramps said.
Yeah. Bing. Vincent asks, military 303 cartridges have a 174 grain 312 flat base bullet. In all my 303 rifles, these bullets perform very well. Why do commercial bullet makers like Sierra, S&B, Privy make 311 boat tail bullets which perform less? Please start an international petition to urge them to produce 174 grain 312 flat base bullets. I don't know why they don't. I'd unfortunately repeated some incorrect information a few times that S&B were flat base, because I didn't actually get around to checking, and I had a couple of people insist they were. I pulled them, and they have a shorter, stubbier, not quite so pronounced boat tail, but the S&Bs generally shoot generally the best. I mean, I've got one rifle that prefers Privy, but my 2-groove loves S&B. And a friend has also a long branch 2-groove that tumbles Privy, but shoots great with S&B. And there seems to be a thing with the 2-grooves. Sometimes they don't like these. I want to find out why that is. We might have to find someone with a water trap somewhere. See if we can recover some bullets and work out what is it. Are they going into the throat wonky? Are they finning? Is there something? Because the Privy bullets seem to be based more or less around GP11. They're very similar. Right. You look at the 180 grain Privy and the 175 308 Privy. They're very similar shape. It's got quite a long boat tail. I'm wondering if it doesn't have enough bearing surface for the 2-groove barrels, or for really worn throats, so it ends up going in. And comes out and goes, whee, somewhere else.
Where shall I go?
Not that way. It's a mystery.
It's a good question, because I have the same not problem but issue with the 7.5 French.
Yeah.
It's also a flat open base, and the factory Privy is, and if you manage to have access to Privy components, you can get it, but no one else does.
Yeah.
So 139, 150 grain.
I don't know. I think it's possibly there's a general prejudice in favour of boat tails, because boat tail must be better, because my long range shooting, when the vast majority of shooting is done at like 25, 50, 100 yards off a picnic table somewhere. It's like you're not going to see the ballistic advantage of the boat tail until way down the line. And in any case, you're shooting these through milsurps, and if you care that much about accuracy, you're going to be loading Match Kings, not Privy, not cheapy stuff. But yeah, I mean, if I ever get the opportunity at a trade show or something to say, make flat base, I will encourage Privy and S&B and whoever to do so. I think it's general prejudice in favour of boat tails, whether it's justified or not.
Maybe manufacturing or something's easier just to.
No, it's not though. No, it's not. I mean, you've got to cone in the end anyway.
Yeah.
It's probably less operations to make a flat base than a boat tail. There was apparently someone in Australia making Repro 303 Mark 7, and frankly, if anyone did that, they would mint it, because give me 10,000 straight off. Just me off. I'd even actually reload.
Made your yearly figure in one purchase.
Eric, do either of you have any experience with Japanese bolt action rifles, or are those pretty scarce on the European market? If so, what are your opinions / any chance of a mad minute?
Yes, they're pretty scarce, at least in the Swiss market.
I've not seen one.
I've seen one. I was going to get it, but it went before I made my mind up. It's a Type 38, I believe. So, yeah. And
there's no ammo for
you
them
won't get the ammo
market
here.
I mean, we'd have to get it special ordered from Privy.
Yeah.
Minimum order, heaven knows how many. I've played with some working moving part DX, and my initial view is they're sticky out bolt handles. There is no excuse for a sticky out bolt handle after about 1900, let alone something like the Type 99 is around the start of World War II, plus or minus, without looking. Yeah. And the sights, putting a sort of semi-ghost ring on a barrel-mounted sight is not really a great idea, in my humble opinion. Generally not that impressed with them, but not fired one, so it's just on the handling. If I get my hands on one and Mad Minute one, there will be a Mad Minute. If we can get the ammo.
Yes.
So, next up. Oh, this is a great one. This is going to be a big tangent. Phil asks, what factors limited the capabilities of early 20th century marksman rifles the most? Yeah, this is a meaty topic.
Go on.
Shall I just nerd out on this?
Nerd.
Right. Early 20th century marksman rifles are limited by the inherent accuracy of the base rifle, because they are almost all exclusively, and I can't think of an exception at this stage, based on scoped standard service rifles. The target rifles of the era, certainly on the continent, were typically martini actions with huge, great, thick barrels, and the Schützen rifles, so with dropped stocks for standing and kneeling shooting. What limits the accuracy potential of the standard service rifles of the era is a combination of tolerances, a weight limit, practical weight limit, and the quality and reliability of the optics, if any, put on them. So you're limited to a light barrel. I think the prejudice was against heavy barrels because someone has to schlep it around.
Yep.
We'll come back to that point. As I said, the Stutzers were just totally not suitable for military use. They're not robust enough. They're single shots, typically. And yeah, so then you've got the question of the timber, the stocking up. The stocking up is critical. Everyone whinges about headspace. I mean, it's a truism of every my gun doesn't shoot straight thread on the internet is like within about halfway down page
Have you checked
one.
headspace?
Have you checked the headspace? And it's like, no, 1 thou of excess headspace is not going to cause a rifle to go from shooting that to that. So the general standard of accuracy for a military rifle of the period is going to be 4 minutes of angle plus minus, some better, some a little worse on average. At the factory gate. The British sniper rifles of World War I were held to about a 3-mower standard, and in Hesketh Pritchard's book he talks about the sniper rifles, which would have been both SMLE and P14. They'd hold that for about 750 rounds. So the guys that turned up to his course were instructed to bring his issued scope rifle and another rifle, and they'd do a lot of the practice with the other rifle just to save the barrel. The only rifles in that period that were well stocked up in general were 1903 Springfield, P14, M17, which copied the Springfield up pressure, stocking up. You've got barrel to woodwork contact, which you need because those barrels are generally too light to self-support, which is why generally, there's always exceptions, but generally they shoot worse when free-floated. So it's like they did it like this for a reason. It would have been simpler just to have a big hollow up the middle and not worry about it, but they need the up pressure.
Well, most things they did things for a reason.
Yeah, some things are legacy issues, like the Mauser rifles are stocked up like 19th century style with full barrel contact all the way down. During World War II, they just allowed a bit of relief of the more problematic areas, but you end up with, through changes in humidity, through the timber drying out, you end up with pressure where you don't want it. If you're going to have pressure, you want it at the muzzle bearing, straight up, and nowhere else. So they're limited, and the quality of the optics were, by modern standards, pathetic. I mean, they're great for the era. What was it? McBride's Rifleman Goes to War, I think it was called. He ended up doing a lot of sniping with a Ross rifle. And he would always check his iron sights were on as well, because he'd check the scope against the iron sights, and if the scope fogged or carked it, he still had the iron sights.
What was the average life, do you know, for the scope?
I don't know, but I mean, Hesketh Pritchard talks about using razor blades to deliberately rust the mounts because they just weren't robust.
Yeah.
Apparently got into a lot of trouble with his armourer handing one back in with rust.
What's that?
Yeah. What's that? Like, yeah, if the scope's sitting there going, it's not going to help you. Yeah. So basically, it's a combination of factors, and by World War II, we're not much further. Certainly, well, the Brits are further because the number 4T, they could hold it at the factory door to 2.5 mower. So you've gained half a mower, guys, over the P14 Mark 1T, and 1903 A4 Springfield. They're better. The scopes are more robust by that point, although a lot of the American snipers had these like unilateral target scopes with external springs and all sorts of strangeness. The number 32 scope is robust because it was intended to be used on a machine gun originally. And then it was finally post-war, like well post-war, that people get serious about sniper rifles, and the weight limit goes. So in the US, you end up with the heavy barrel Remy 700 based rifles, things like that. The UK, the L42, which is basically a target rifle. It's practically a target rifle, and in fact they use the same barrels on them as they used on the L39 target rifles. I have an L39. We will be discussing that in a future video. And then as we've moved on, it's been more influenced by target shooting. And if we go back to the early 20th century, the target shooting was shooting with the service rifle, aside from the Schützen type shooting. So there wouldn't have been cross-pollination there, because fundamentally what they could have done, if they'd known to do it, is they could have done what basically the L42 was. They could have taken a P14 and slapped a heavy target barrel on it, but that just wasn't a thing.
Wasn't a thing, yeah.
And I think it would have been a mental step too far to deviate from the standard service rifle by more than just better setup, better sights.
Yeah.
And in modern times, you've got the Accuracy International L96 was designed by an Olympic target shooter. So there'd be far more target influence later, and they're big and heavy and awkward compared to the sniper rifles of back in the day. And that's not even going into the modern semi-auto DMRs. So I hope that vaguely answers the question with my massive ramble there. I'm actually starting to shiver. It's actually quite chilly. Clayton, not firearms related, but do either of you have a fondness for gin? If so, which brands or mixes do you like?
Neither here nor there, to be honest.
No, I'll drink a nice gin and tonic,
Yeah.
but not into any particular brand, not into the hipster gins. Not really a thing.
Can't really taste the difference, to be honest.
Certainly not for what the price costs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're drinking it neat, then maybe, but you're drinking it mixed, and it's like a bottle of Gordon's for like 15-20 francs versus hipster gin for like 3 or 4 times as much. You can't.
Yeah. Our palate is not accurate enough to discern the difference.
No, I mean, you can tell the difference between a 15 franc and a 50 franc bottle of whiskey, but gin, no. Although I rather like Dutch gin, Jenever.
Oh yes.
But that's a different beast entirely. But again, I can't tell the difference between the mass market ones and the hipster ones, as it were. But then you'd mostly be drinking that neat.
Yep.
Often freezing cold. But it also makes an epic gin and tonic. So, but yeah, sort of middle of the road bowls, tip top. No need to spend more than that. Oh dear. My PDF is missing Thomas Gray's question, which was, how many guns do each of you own and what are they? We would be here all day.
1, 2, 3, lots, many.
Yeah. Both of us own many, under 100 each.
Yeah.
We're not into serious territory. I don't know my figure.
Nor do I.
Yeah, sorry. Stuart Burton, and I hope there isn't one that's dropped off the PDF in the meantime. If the British Army had decided post-World War I to go for a rimless cartridge, what would have been the best and which the most likely? My personal favourite, French 7.5. Which French 7.5?
I'm guessing the
yeah, guessing we mean the later.
Smash 29.
Yeah. Now, post-World War I is a wide thing. It was a time of reduced budgets. 303 stuck around because it was there, it worked. It didn't rim jam in rifles in the issue form. There was no value add to change. What I think would have happened was that had a viable semi-auto rifle come up at some point and they had the budget to actually adopt it, so the stars aligning there, it would probably have be most likely that they would have adopted whatever that had been chambered in.
Which is basically the 7.5 French story.
Yeah.
Rearming, they start with the machine gun, but they also got the semi-auto rifle in the works, and they want one round for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of within the bounds of realisticness. So as long as it's not crazy hot or clearly too light, I suspect it would have been whatever it had been chambered in, whether that had been an existing cartridge or a proprietary cartridge. They'd have just gone with it. I don't think there'd have been a massive amount of development, but as we all know, nobody presented a viable semi-auto rifle, and they wouldn't have had the budget for one anyway, probably.
Time was short,
which is why they went back to developing the Lee Enfield series in the interwar period. Okay, right, we've got zillions of rifles on hand, and this is a whole topic on its own. Because like the P14 was a dead end of development. There are a couple of random protos made on P14 actions between the wars, but they had a large number of them on hand, and this is a whole topic for a whole video. They could have gone back to developing either way, but in the Textbook of Small Arms 1929, the P14 is practically a footnote because they really weren't impressed with it as an infantry rifle, which is why they didn't use it as an infantry rifle. It was relegated to training and marksmanship. Excellent marksman's rifle, and still used in World War II with a scope on it as the sniper rifle, early war. But the experience of World War I had validated the whole SMLE concept, had put the naysayers from the pre-war period that had driven the P13 project initially, put them to bed, and they went back to developing, improving the SMLE. But the SMLE Mark V, they produced 24,000, something like that, of them, but they were sort of instantly put in store and rendered obsolescent, and actually some turned up in odd places like Vietnam. There's a photo of turn up on the Army Rumour Service of one being used by Viet Cong. It's like, cool, how'd that end up there? Wow. Because the British Army used them for trials and then whacked them in store, to the point where they weren't actually uprated in nomenclature to number 1 Mark V, because they just didn't bother with the obsolete stuff, or obsolescent stuff. And then we ended up with the number 1 Mark VI, which became number 4, which was then, okay, we've done our trials, we put it aside, and it's, okay, in the event of war in Europe, this is what we make. Because there was very little rifle production into war. It was basically BSA Small Heath were doing commercial contract SMLEs and just small numbers just to make sure there was a factory producing them, whereas Enfield was doing other stuff generally and did the trials. And that was a massive tangent from the question. Basically, I personally don't believe that there's a massive amounts of difference between particular cartridges within reason. I mean, you go to the top end, the heavy bullet 8mm Mauser is really too much for a shoulder-fired rifle. At the bottom end, what at the time would have been considered weedy, like 6.5 Japanese, 6.5 Carcano. With hindsight, knowing what we know today, they were getting on close to intermediate cartridges, and actually looking at them in that light is kind of cool, but I can't see the Brits ever going for anything like that. You've got 276 Peterson, sort of deliberately getting towards the intermediate cartridge thing. That didn't happen. I mean, to be honest, had the Brits adopted the Peterson rifle, they would probably have adopted 276 Peterson. But it would have just been, the rifle fundamentally wasn't viable, and so it didn't happen. So I hope that's at least vaguely interesting answer. I don't know. I'm just rambling. Marvin asks, what are your thoughts of dry firing an Enfield or any other bolt action rifle?
Yes.
Military centre-fire bolt action rifles, dry fire them to your heart's content. Dry firing is how you get good. Fundamentally, if you're not dry firing, you're wasting ammo because you're not practicing good trigger press and sight alignment without the distraction of recoil. Rim fires vary. Some rim fires you can dry fire, some rim fires you can't.
Yeah.
Number 8s, we dry fired them zillions of times. We dry fired them more than we live fired them at school, and they've been replaced by a Savage, and I'm sure the Vice President of Savage is going to get on my case for this as well. Apparently they're mushrooming firing pins. the British doctrine involves a lot of dry firing. A, for practice, and B, as part of the manual of arms. At the end, you use springs. Close the bolt, press trigger. So I have heard many allegations from people whose opinion I trust on the L144A1 cadet small bore target rifle that are reporting mushroom firing pins. Good job, guys. Fundamentally, we get a lot of don't dry fire. It's bad etiquette to dry fire, or you shouldn't dry fire them. It's like, it's my rifle. I'll dry fire it. No ill is going to come of it. It will cause wear on the bent and sear, just as live firing would. But so what? These are replaceable parts in any case, and you've got to dry fire it a lot to wear that out. And if a part did break, it would break and replace it.
Yep.
But I mean, British small arms from probably the Martini Henry onwards would have been dry fired incessantly, all the time, far more than they were ever shot live. And no one's yet reported this is a problem, other than with the aforementioned.
Other than the internet.
Well, and the aforementioned L144A1. John asks, do you miss anything about the TR target rifle scene in the UK? Have read your complaints of sorts about it on the Army Rumour Service, and I know there's plenty you're not a fan of, but what about its endearing idiosyncrasies? Nostalgia, it has its endearing idiosyncrasies. I do miss the opportunity to shoot iron sights at 1,000 yards on a fairly regular basis and plug in possibles if the wind's not playing up too much. Sitting there reading wind, hitting a big wind change and coming bang on the plumb line, the shot at 1,000 or 900, there's a deep feeling of satisfaction in that. I don't miss a lot of the old boy network infighting and things like that used to go on a lot. I'm not going to go into it too much. Don't want to make more enemies than I've already got from back in the day. But yeah, I mean, certainly, particularly Peter Cottrell, the director of shooting, is trying to encourage more diversity in the shooting disciplines, and he's actively promoting civilian service rifle a lot, so much respect there. Back in the day, there was an active movement amongst target rifle and match rifle. And match rifle's the long range where you were allowed optic sights and rests, that was actively suspicious and worked against people trying other disciplines. My view was, if it goes bang and it's target shooting, it should be supported, and then you get cross-pollination into the disciplines that you want people to do. Their view was that only these two disciplines should be done and everything else is heresy. Don't miss that. Apparently that has changed to a certain degree these days. A lot of that thanks to Peter. You weren't in that scene.
I was not.
So, Turbo 1889. If you lived at the very end of the black powder cartridge era, this is one for you.
Yeah.
Right before the invention of smokeless powder, and had no knowledge of the impending invention of smokeless powder, which you naturally wouldn't,
Of course.
unless you were
French.
Paul Vier. But are you Paul Vier? Are you in the system? What best available firearms would you choose for your personal use? Same question for if you were in charge of equipping the armed forces of a small nation. Basically, what were the best guns of the black powder cartridge era and why? I think we should limit this to full power military.
Yeah.
Otherwise
for more personal use. But actually, we both made up our minds separately
Yep.
and came to the same conclusion.
Yep.
And that is the Remington Lee. Box magazine, 10 shots.
They weren't
Was
10.
it?
They were single
Was it 10?
stack. They were in like 45-70 and 43 Spanish and things like that.
What was it then?
So
8?
they were 5 or
5,
6
okay.
or something.
No, box mags.
Lee's original idea was that people would carry multiples, and the US Navy issued them on a small scale with spare mags.
So you find far more magazines for sale than the rifles.
Do you?
Yeah.
I've never looked.
And they were all chambered in a good full power service cartridge.
Yep. Nothing too exotic like 5.77 450.
Yeah.
It was optimised for a single shot tipping block.
Exactly. So that was that would have been first choice.
Yep.
Basically, that was the only box magazine.
Yeah, it's far. I mean, it's the only fast one. Now, if your chain of command had said, "What? What? Heresy? No,
Heresy,
no,
yes.
no. We can't have multiple magazines." What would we choose? And again, we both came to exactly the same
then it's
conclusion.
the Mannlicher 1886.
Yep.
Charger loaded.
En bloc.
En bloc, 6 rounds. And you get, again, of a decent full bore service cartridge. Fast. Good, simple straight pull. It's heavy, but I think the Remington Lee is also heavy.
They're all heavy.
Complaint. Yeah.
They were all heavy in that era. I mean, they were big rifles, big long rifles, firing chunky cartridges.
So that would have been the way to go.
Definitely. And the French, as we said in an earlier video, the French liked the Remington Lee, but considered that its rate of fire tired the troops.
Yeah. Too many rounds.
Yeah.
Which was odd because it's the same 8 rounds.
Yeah, but you can reload it rather quicker with changing out the box mag. And I mean, if we're not going, if we're going into smaller cartridges, I agree with Carl. Winchester 73 with the Kingsgate 4440, 200 yard for personal use.
Yeah.
They're nice. They've got the toggle, the toggle locking mechanism rather than the later
lifting
bar. Browning designed systems. Fully agree with him. Assault rifle of its era.
Yeah.
It's amazing how similarly minded people come to similar conclusions.
Yes, tube magazines are only good in lever actions.
Yeah, you don't want
it's
them
inexcusable.
Yeah, and in fact they did have speed loaders. We found patents of speed loaders dating back to, like, I think the earliest one I found was 1879, something like that.
Through Kingsgate.
Just
like a shotgun.
A friend of ours from British Alpine Rifles was marketing them for Rossies and Winchesters and Marlins with a slidey handle, but the idea is old.
I want to make one that fits in the lapel.
I'm sure someone's done it. So, Tan Hat asks, I'm new to reloading and would really like to start the hobby by finding a good GP11 approximation so as to conserve my stock of that excellent round. Can you point me in some direction based on your experience? I've read some positive results with 175 grain Sierra Match Kings and Reloader 17. Have you heard of any good combinations with all copper rounds, potentially for hunting as required in my area? I know you may not want to go into specifics, but any general direction is appreciated. Thanks. Sorry, we don't reload GP11. To answer this question, we would have to Google it.
Yeah.
Because we don't. We will reload GP11 cases as GP90 equivalents.
Yeah.
At which point I can tell you that my recipe is 35.5 grains of Reload Swiss RS50 behind 175 grain Privy 308, and I shot that at 300 and it worked fine. No filler. It works worse with a filler. It's like the one time I bothered with a filler in anything. I was like, I don't know, let's not.
Yeah. But no, it's just not worth reloading here.
No,
for obvious reasons.
No, the amount we shoot off of sanctioned ranges is relatively little, so we just pay through the nose for commercial. It's about £1 a round, and then on sanctioned ranges we buy a GP11. So I have not had any experience reloading that, but people have reported 175 grain Sierra Match Kings doing well. One issue sometimes is that, interesting tangent, the K31 chamber and throat configuration is built around the existing cartridge, and one of the things they did is it's got a really super short lead. It's like almost no lead, like the rifling just starts. As a result, a lot of the American bullets, which are designed for a more classic American type of parallel lead, they're a bit fatter at the front, because GP11, if you look at it, it tapers very, very, very rapidly from the mouth of the case. I think, I might be wrong, so don't quote me on this. I think it's a Secant Ogive, I think. But it's much steeper than a lot of the Match Kings, so some people report difficulty chambering or difficulty loading to a sensible overall length in them. Depends on the state of wear of your individual rifle's throat. But the big challenge seems to be finding a bullet that you can load to a sensible overall length rather than having to load it too short. But plenty of information out there on the SwissRifles.com forum.
Yep.
And a lot of discussion around the short throat issue. So, sorry, I can't help you further than that. Shane asks, when looking at buying a firearm for target shooting, is it better to look at overall quality or matching serial numbers?
serial numbers are meaningless. Target rifle.
The answer is neither. Does it shoot?
Yeah.
It's the only question. It can be if it looks a total dog, but it shoots, it's good.
Yep.
Neither of us are particularly into aesthetics. You're more into aesthetics than me, but I'm not at all. I mean, I call it the iffy ishy. Looks like a dog, not matching bolt, shoots pretty well. I bought that as a beta rifle, thinking that it was probably going to shoot horribly, but actually shoots all right. I think it shoots better than the other one. But yeah, the only consideration is, does it shoot well? And unless you can test fire it, you won't know, which is the difficulty in a shop. But it could be the doggiest bitzer ever, that's dog-eared and what have you. But if it shoots straight, it shoots straight, and that's all we care about. Douglas, greetings to you both. I'm glad to hear Bloke survived Desert Brutality 2020. I waved as he flew over New England. Thank you. I have a Swiss Leloc muzzle-loading target rifle built to be shot from the standing position, what in America we would call a Schützen rifle. Schützen still has some popularity in America and Germany. Based on my rifle, it seems that Schützen, or however it was known in Switzerland, was once practiced there, but from your videos it seems the Swiss competition is now heavily oriented towards the prone position. What happened to Schützen in Switzerland?
Well, it died for legal reasons. Not bad legal reasons, rule changes.
Well, rule changes,
Yeah.
basically. The reason why they've all got these incredibly dropped stocks is that they're optimised for like hunched up standing. As soon as any rifle, more or less, was allowed in prone, very few people will have stayed doing standing and kneeling, because previously it was military rifle prone, and then all singing, all dancing, but kneeling or standing. The same happened with small bore as well. A lot of the small bore Schmidt-Rubin inserts that you see, they were never an issued item. They were all for training, but you could shoot them prone, whereas the small bore Schützen type rifles had to be shot in other positions.
Physically can't anyway.
Yeah, and as soon as the rules changed, it sort of died a death. And with the minimal danger area ranges, a lot of them, shooting anything other than prone is probably not allowed anyway, particularly if there's a house like right there.
You still see them around in shops, but they're dirt cheap because no one buys them because you can't use them.
And a lot of them are chambered for GP90, not GP11. As in
Those
old
do go
GP90.
for a lot of money.
The GP11 ones go for more money simply because the ammo is easily available for them. You do sometimes see GP90 ones that were reamed for GP11, but having like an 11 in an oval stamped on the chamber sometimes. But that sort of died a death a long, long time ago. You very occasionally see in some competitions some kneeling shooting at 300. Very rarely. I've seen it like once or twice. I walked in and he's kneeling. Oh, okay. And then you get the ISSF lot who do 3 position.
Yeah.
But that's not part of the normal club program. That's a separate ISSF type thing. And I hope it's a nice rifle. There were actually quite a lot made in Leloc. There are a couple of gunsmiths up there back in the day.
Yeah, it seems to have been a little gunsmithing.
Christian asks, what are your thoughts on the reproduction plastic bolt knobs for the 1889 to 1911 series of rifles? Are they worth getting if the original is pretty well cracked? Also, any possibility on some SIG 550 content?
Hey, the bolt knobs, if you need it, sure.
Yeah, one of my rifles has a Repro bolt knob on it because you can't get originals, and even if you could, they'd fall apart anyway.
Yeah, and they're brittle anyway, especially after
it's
80 years in storage somewhere if they haven't been taken off something else.
Yeah, it's some vulcanised hard rubber. It's called canvasite or
Canvas? No.
Or
I can't remember what it's called. Some ite of the era.
Yeah, they don't survive that well. And SIG 550 concept, well,
I've got one.
He's got one that used to be mine.
Yeah.
Which I swapped for the 1851 Feldstutzer that used to be yours.
Frankly, if you want AK content, YouTube is full of it. Why should I add to it?
We will at some point. The only interesting thing in them really is the gas system.
Yeah.
It's a dosed gas system to cope with rifle grenades that were then never issued. Because it's got an integral spigot, but they never actually issued them. They started issuing underslung grenade launchers. But that's a topic for Dale.
Yeah.
He loves his rifle grenades.
But well, you know us. We like guns with soul, and
Yeah,
there's a bit of wood on it somewhere.
not necessarily.
Yeah.
Well,
We're creeping up towards. We're getting more modern. You realise?
Oh yeah, well I'm getting my M16A1, so yeah, we kind of find them a bit sterile and uninteresting, but the
I use it so the kids and my wife can shoot felt Schützen once a year.
I shoot a K31 better off a sling than that off a bipod, so that's why I got rid of it. It'd become a safe queen. But I'll do a go over the gas system at some point if you don't want to.
It means I've got to clean it. Yeah.
Cleaning's overrated. Michael asks, is there any shotgun shooting in Switzerland? Trap, skeet or live game of some sort? Yes, there's not that much. Getting a hunting permit is a seriously involved and expensive process. Friend hunts, he's actually been on the channel a couple of times. I've been to a skeet range. I think I'm shooting down the line. I'm not sure. They're around. It's not a big thing. They need quite a lot of area, and with all the fuss about lead shot from the enviros these days, it's just getting more hassle. Up by Kandersteg there's a Jagdstand. There's actually one down near me by Bergflu that I didn't know about, but there is. But it's not massively popular in the UK. There's loads of shotgun shooting because the licensing regime for shotguns holding 3 rounds or less compared to other firearms
Far friendlier. Yeah.
is far friendlier. You don't need good reason, although the police like to ask people for good reason, but there's no legal requirement for it. And you can shoot them anywhere you've got permission and it's safe in the UK. Here you can't. So
I mean, they're in the shops, so somebody must buy them. But
yeah. I have a shotgun. I have 2 shotguns. I've got the 410 issue and a
nasty tin.
nasty 200 franc second-hand bolt action Mossberg, which I will use for something at some point. It shoots massively high though. It's like they didn't really think about the bead to the rear sight notch ratio. It's like a metre high at 25 metres. It's insane.
200 francs.
Yeah. Dennis, what is your opinion of the best method of making 10.4 by 33R ammo for the Vetterli M78 from readily available brass, i.e. which brass, which dies, which projectiles?
Right. Using readily available stuff, I would say careful reforming of 8mm French Bell, 8x50R, 51R now it's now called. Other than that, 348 Winchester brass, it'll work. The rim is ever so slightly too narrow, so you might sometimes get a bit of extraction and ejection issues. But I think I'm the only person that actually repeats with the Vetterli. So
yeah. The other option is 10.3 by 60R, but unless you're living in this part of the world, that's not even a thing.
But even there, you have the rim issue. If you've seen my Lathe Antics thing, the rim is of modern 10.3 is tiny rim. So single shot, it'll work. And then for the dies, Lee has done a run.
They sometimes turn up second hand.
Yeah. If not, it's CH4D.
So send them a line and wait 18 months or whatever.
I think it's not too bad. I've still got my set's about 20 years old. It works fine. Yeah. And bullets, some kind of heavy 44 special.
44 Magnum, 300-ish.
Yeah.
Grain.
Nice hard lead.
Flat nose if you want to use the magazine. You can and actually it's probably better to trim to 42mm, not 38. You can actually trim even longer because the chamber configuration of them isn't modern. You've basically got the shoulder of the case and then it's just a massive long straight taper. And I slugged, I chamber cast a couple of mine. There's massive variation from rifle to rifle, but it was like the taper was like that long. It's huge.
Well, because the original's got a substantial paper patch.
Not all of them,
the 38, the first ones.
Yeah, but then they went to loop groove.
So you got space for that big paper patch.
Yeah, but they started paper patch, then they went to loop grooves.
Yeah,
and then they went back to paper patch when they went nitro in 1891.
Yeah. So the lead-in has got is dimensioned to allow for that. So you can the case length can be longer.
Yeah. Was it 91 or was it 90? Sorry, working from memory here. And as I'm getting older, I make more gaffes on videos. I'm terribly sorry. I've had to ask people to edit out my stupidity where I said something wrong.
As for loads, I just nowadays just do a full case of black powder because I don't believe in putting smokeless. People do, and there's tried and tested recipes out there in published. But that's your decision. I don't.
If you want to shoot nitro, it's basically a slightly fatter 44 Magnum. So you can more or less, and caveat emptor of course, don't blame me, you can take 44 Magnum load data as a starting point because it's got a greater case capacity, significantly greater case capacity. You're going to be using pistol powders anyway, not rifle powders, so who cares about fill ratio really. I used to load 240 grain hard lead over, it was a load of Vit N350. It was literally just came out the 44 Magnum table for that bullet weight, and it worked fine. Yeah, it's there's not too much black magic in those.
No.
They're not that funny. I mean, for a military cartridge, they are small case capacity. So you could also, if you really wanted to, make chamber adapters for 44 Magnum.
Yeah.
That will work too. So, next up, we're almost there. Kevin asks, having done multiple types of competitive shooting in multiple countries, which is your favourite and why? Also, which do you find most challenging? Well, I love the brutality matches and all kinds of practical shooting. I wish there were more opportunities to do it nearer here. There is IPSC here, but I don't have time to do it. If I ever get time again, I will get on that scene, I hope, at some point. But the brutality matches are great because they challenge everything. You have to be a good shot, you have to be physically reasonably fit. You've got to be able to shoot a pistol and a rifle and transition between the two. Your gun handling has to be spot on, otherwise you get DQ'd for various failures like moving with your finger in the trigger guard or sweeping someone or breaking the 180, things like that. It's an all-in experience. Next in line, IPSC type shooting. I do like the element of speed. With the static disciplines, actually ISSF dual I really like, partly because I'm good at it. So that's with a sport pistol, like a laser gun. Start 45-degree start position. The target's turn. You got 3 seconds to come up, fire a shot, bring it back down, and then rinse and repeat in series of 5 for a total of normally 30 shots. And my record, I think I've broken 290 out of 300 on occasion. I've had multiple strings of 5 that have shot 50, and I've shot 98s, 99s over 2 adjacent strings. That's quite fun. And in terms of just sheer marksmanship, target rifle actually, but that's mostly a wind judging game. The wind judging is more important than the marksmanship in general, because you've got rifles that are sub-minute of angle capable and a bullseye that is of the order of 2 MOA plus minus, so you've got a fair margin on your basic marksmanship once you're above a certain level, of course. But then the wind, just miss a wind change, and the UK is a windy little place. Miss a wind change and you're blown way out sometimes. One particularly nasty day at 1,000 where the wind was like coming straight up the range at you and fishtailing left and right. And it was like 9 MOA right to 9 MOA left, and if you missed it, you could be blown like multiple targets down. That was quite fun. It was just keeping on top of that was just massively difficult. Right, Dave asks, any chance you'll cover the South African police takedown SMLE? I was unaware there was one. I will admit, I do not have encyclopedic knowledge. The muzzle flash from its 14-inch barrel might equal that custom Swiss monster you fired. I'm sure it does, particularly with cordite. It's one of those things that if one ever crossed my path, I would take a look at it, and I'd have to bone up on its history because I'm unaware of it. I don't recall it being in the version of Skeleton Reinforced story that I've got. Also, cut down police things. There's the Swiss have a Mehrzweckwerfer 71, a multiple use launcher 71, and it's basically a cut down K31 with a cup discharger on it.
Yeah.
And Zurich police occasionally use them on the soap dodgers whenever they're protesting whatever they're protesting today, and they use them to launch rubber shot and tear gas and things like
stuff,
that.
yeah.
And
Those come out. Those come up now and again.
yeah, one came up recently.
Yeah.
But it is a militärisches Abschussgerät, a military firing off device,
Yes.
which means it goes on an exemption permit. So it's quite an expensive permit for a nice gizit like that. But
shooting a tennis ball, perhaps.
I think you probably need shoot a tennis ball with it. You're using a military launcher.
Ooh.
I think that would be inadvisable.
Hard pack flour.
Hard pack flour. I mean, if you're launching something out of it, you're potentially in
It's
trouble.
not launching. It's just going.
How'd it go? Sure.
Yeah.
Right, Daniel. Last one. Not shooting related. What is considered the best Swiss milk chocolate? I like Milka, but then I like very milky chocolate. To my wife's disgust, I like white chocolate.
I'm not really a milk chocolate kind of person.
No, I don't think. This is personal taste.
Yeah.
So
It's hard to get bad chocolate here.
it is hard
even
to
the
get
cheap,
bad chocolate
nasty
here.
budget one at the supermarket is. But
Yeah, actually, the 50-cent Co-op or Migros basic chocolate is actually very nice.
yeah.
It's obviously not as nice as Lindt that costs like 6 or 7 times as much, but yeah. On that note, immediately after this, we're doing a chocolate taste test, which will certainly be launched before this video.
This
We're
one.
going to blindfold him.
Yeah.
And, so anyway, thanks. I hope that wasn't too rambly. If you've survived this far, jolly good show.
Let's hope we're not frozen to this log.
Yeah. So patrons are allowed to ask these questions. So if you would like to ask a question of us, whether it is shooting related or not, please consider becoming a patron. It helps fund the channel, helps keep us going, helps keep us going to exciting places and shooting exciting things with cool people and shoot cool rifles, like going to Desert Brutality. So thank you very much, patrons, for that. And it basically keeps us chugging along and still managing to maintain the one video a week between us. If anything changes on that front, we will let you know and apologise profusely. But for the moment, we are keeping up with it. Much to your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do my best.
And so Patreon link in the description below. See you again sometime. And I am. No, it's good. I've just seized up.
All right.
All right. Bye.